Pizza delivery people of Reddit. What's the most memorable thing you've heard on the other side of the door after you rang the doorbell? A party of about 40 drunk teenagers hiding as soon as the doorbell rang. Not sure if they forgot they ordered food and thought I was the cops, but it was pretty entertaining seeing a bunch of drunk butt kids failing to hide. Years back I delivered to a swanky hotel downtown. As I came up to the room I heard moans of pleasure, but I was exhausted and not having it, so instead of politely calling the guy's phone I just banged on the door. There was some mumbling and then an overweight and very sweaty middle-aged man answered. After he paid and closed the door I heard the woman yell, "You ordered pizza. What the frick is wrong with you?" It's never crossed my mind that I could order pizza to my hotel room. This was after the transaction, but there was like a family gathering in the house and I was saying bye and a little girl who couldn't have been more than 5 years old told me in very happily and enthusiastically, "Go frick yourself." LOL. The family was mortified but I was cracking up. Imagine if you'd automatically responded "you too." I worked at Domino's in the Netherlands and worked as delivery guy. On a regular work day I delivered a margarita pizza to an elderly woman in a wheelchair. She lived in a house for elderly. She invited me to come in because she couldn't eat the pizza in slices. She asked me to cut the pizza in little pieces, and so I did. I stayed for a little while because she told me she hadn't had a pizza for years. It was her husband's favorite fast food. He died a couple months ago. She told me. I will never forget how happy she was to talk someone. She enjoyed the crap out of the pizza. That's really wholesome of you to stay with her. People tend to forget that the elderly are still people, so thank you for making that woman's day. You're a lovely person. My friend delivered a pizza to some guys that were getting ready to go to a clan meeting. They were in their white hoods and everything and apparently just wanted a pizza. Can't burn crosses on an empty stomach. Wanted to spend Halloween of 2016 with my brother and his kids cause I haven't started a family yet. Boss decided to say come in and help or you're fired. Needed the job at the time so I go in grumpy as heck. Deliver about 4 pizzas to this older gentleman's house and he asks me how my Halloween is going. I'm honest with him and he takes me into this big butt room. Tells me he's an architect and shows me some schematics he's drawing up for a new home for a client. Really interesting stuff. Then tips me $60. Improved my mood phenomenally. In an alternate reality you ended up chained to a cross in his sex dungeon. I used to deliver pizza in high school, late 90s. The first one was I delivered to my teacher who was high as a kite and he gave me a $100 tip. Told me to not tell anyone. He was a shop teacher and one of those guys that always preached to us to stay off drugs. The second one was I delivered to this house and I could hear girls giggling inside. They opened the door and like 5 teenage girls were standing there with their boobs out just laughing. As a 16-year-old I was shocked and just looked away nervously. Why didn't you go for a sixum? The racking of a shotgun slide and a very deep but voice ask who it is. Nothing that unusual really. Pizza guy. What threw me was the deep voice hollering, "Dad. Pizza guy here." Dad comes, opens the door and it's his maybe 13-year-old son with a 12-gauge shotgun. It's only so memorable because the dad was the only black teacher at my high school. He was an English teacher. Who it is LOL. Perfume lady. I delivered for Domino's in '94 in Cape Girardeau, MO. Once a month caller it would show up with perfume lady. She was saved in the computer that way. The rules were simple. Deliver pizza to trailer. Place pizza on doorstep. Pick up envelope left on porch for pizza. Knock on door. Walk to car. Do not look back. Do not look in envelope. Do not wait to see what perfume lady looks like. When we got to the store, the cash for the pizza was there and a $100 tip. The envelope was soaked in her perfume. Never knew what she looked like. A man? A horribly disfigured monster? A beautiful MILF? Nobody was willing to not get that delivery again by waiting to see. It's a celebrity. Order up. I grabbed the pizza and the slip with the address and phone number information, only to realize it was the address of the pizza place I'm working from. Free pizza for us, but the guy who took the order never lived it down. Man, I have a couple, but this is probably the weirdest. I delivered for Giordano's. If you're from the Chicagoland area, you know they are famous for their deep dish. There was an order for 1 small cheese deep dish pizza. and when I rolled up on the house I noticed that there was only one light on in the whole house, presumably the living room. I rang the doorbell and waited for what felt like a solid minute in the freezing cold. The dude who answered the door looked exactly like John Waters, pencil mustache and all, wearing only a blue silk robe, open, with tighty whities underneath. He looked barely awake. He started at me blankly for like 10 seconds and then paid with a coupon, didn't tip, and shut the door without a word. When I got back to my car, I noticed every light in the house was now off. 90% sure he fricked that pizza. I was a kid, delivering something from my mother to my neighbor. It escapes me what it was that time, but that's not important. An African grey parrot answered the door. The front door had been open, and there was a closed screen door. Moments after I rang the doorbell, the parrot flapped clumsily down the stairs, landed on the floor in front of me, and said in a gruff voice, "Hello. I have an African grey and she does this every time somebody comes to the door or a phone rings." Then proceeds to have a convo in two deaf voices to herself. "I'm coming," before ringing the doorbell. Afterwards, he answers in shorts only and out of breath. Girl is under a blanket on the couch. Wow, he's really cute. As a group of 3 cute college-age girls opened the door. I was around the same age as them, so made me feel fantastic as low self-esteem was a big issue for me back then. They only tipped me the remainder of $20 from a total $19.48. And looking back on it, did they expect me to hear their comment and not tip me? But at the time I had so much more pep in my step, at least for the remainder of the day. Haha. Not a pizza delivery person, but on the receiving end. The guy wanted to pet my dog. She was an old sweet gal. He let her lick inside of his mouth for way too long. Like at least 3 licks without any reaction. Went in with an open mouth for a dog kiss. Hope you didn't tip him. Seems like he got his fair share from the dog. From the door, nothing, as the apartment was apparently vacant. But from behind me I heard I got a gun. Don't move. So there's that. One time I ran myself over with my own car while delivering a pizza to this family. It happened in their driveway. Before I ran to stop my rolling car I had rung their doorbell. By the time the whole event was over I looked up from the ground to see the whole family staring at me. Maybe not the other side of the door, but I most certainly heard them laughing at me. Reading through these you see all the usual suspects that you would think would happen. But your story was the one that actually made me laugh. During the summer between high school grad and starting university I worked at a Pizza Hut doing deliveries. In one house I delivered to, I walked in on 2 men arguing on how they were going to kill someone. I don't know if they were actually going to do it, or who they were going to kill, but I just hoped it was a theoretical discussion. It was you. Foiled again. Nothing. The dude opened the door just before I could knock. He was shirtless and was tattooed with tribal patterns from neck to foot. I was scared shitless for a second. Tipped me $10 bucks, so he's a total bro. I was the delivery person and I made the frick up, lol. The person on the other side of the door said that was quick to someone in the house and it really was about the delivery time, not something sexual. She answered the door and repeated that was quick. I went to say that's awesome and I'm glad, and my brain malfunctioned, so I said, "Oh, I'm awesome. I want to die every day remembering that, lol." But it made sense in the situation. If I were the gal, I would have just thought you were being funny and never given it a second thought. This might not be what you're looking for, but I have a favorite delivery story. I have an excellent mental map of my city, and as a result, I was able to take several deliveries at a time very quickly. So as per usual, I was running 20-25 minutes ahead of schedule for delivery. I only really rushed because most customers have really fun sheepish grins when pizza only takes 15-20 minutes to get to them. At my first stop, however, I wish I had smoked a joint in the car or some other bad decision instead of showing up early. Maybe if I had taken my sweet time, the elderly Asian man who answered the door would have had time to finish his business. This guy answers the door in a stained white t-shirt and no freaking pants. Now I could have handled this. I've been to gyms, but frick me, I wasn't ready to see him still wearing a Trojan. Homie pulled out to answer the door and was probably gonna go smash once the door closed. I'm still kinda rattled by that one. It was nothing I heard. It was the look on the customer's face when he realized who I was. The week prior, We'd had a particularly busy night. Drivers had to clean the restaurant, do tons of dishes, and prepare dough for the next day. It had been a busy day and a busy evening. I worked from noon to close with a very short break. It was almost 3 AM when I was finally on my way home. I was exhausted, but I'd made close to $200 in tips that night, in spite of weak tippers. A nice feeling as I drove home in the darkness. As I cruised through a stretch of road that was normally gridlock, it felt surreal, virtually empty. The only other car on the road was probably 3 miles behind me. Incidentally, the speed limit on this stretch drops from 55 to 45 to 35 within a couple miles, so when it wasn't gridlock, it was a well-known speed trap. I felt silly slowing down when the only other soul awake was miles behind me, but I decided to coast down to the lower speed anyway. When I crossed into a 35 mile per hour I was still coasting. The other car wasn't coasting. It was a cop who had raced to catch up so he could catch me in the 35 mile per hour section of the highway before it returned to 55 miles per hour. As soon as it passes out of his jurisdiction, he claimed he clocked me at 45 in a 35. Ugh. Said he that knew what it was like to be in a car all day and would cut me a break. What a relief. And only ticket me for the minimum speeding violation to reduce the fine to a $300 fine, negating what I'd earned that night. I was crestfallen. He was so effing smug. Not so smug when he answered the door a week later and realized I'd had unsupervised access to his food. Frankly, I recognized his name on the address receipt, and I could have spit in his food, added some laxatives, or whatever. Sometimes I wish I had, but these days I'm glad I didn't. Last I heard from people who still worked there years later, the police in that area no longer issued tickets to pizza drivers, people wearing ups FedEx, etc. Last I heard from people who still worked there years later, the police in that area no longer issued tickets to pizza drivers, people wearing ups FedEx, etc. Yeah, it's interesting to see who police give professional courtesy to. Also most make sense. Nurses, EMTs. Super late but this is my calling. I live in a rural area and there are a few grouping of condo type houses. I would deliver there 5 or 6 times a night on a slow night. One night I pull up and I hear a woman screaming at the top of her lungs poop. IT's filled with poop. Jesus Christ, why is IT filled with poop? She answers the door and smiles and hands me the money and whatnot. Says goodnight and closes the door. As soon as I turn to walk back to my car I hear I don't care. Just dump IT out the window or something. God damn it, there's so much poop. She lives on the 2nd floor. Don't know why I'm imagining this as a Kenan and Kel episode but I just lost my lungs for a good minute or two there. Ask him if he wants his dong sucked. I was 16 or 17 and it was my first week on the job. Pretty sweet, right? It was 2 burly gay dudes inside. I was so embarrassed I quit before my next shift. You should have replied I am 16. That would have killed their mood or created a situation where you need to call the FBI and Chris Hansen. Delivered to a hotel, and as I was walking to the door, I heard someone getting choked out across the hallway, gagging and all. I was like, what in the frick? And put my head to the door to make sure it wasn't someone getting murdered. Unfortunately I was very wrong. Following this concerning noise I heard at least 3 different men saying vulgar things to a woman moaning. Was 100% a gangbang. And by the sounds of it she was in on it. Definitely wasn't rape, which was my second thought. Anyways, I knocked on the hotel room door I was delivering to and dad answered with his 3 kids and their mom in the room as well. As he was paying the only thing you could hear was the sounds of dirty old sex. Definitely top 10 most awkward deliveries. Another time I delivered to a high school party and someone was shouting in the house, who in the frick took my bag of blow? Definitely have seen some weird crap but the hotel was in the top 3. I actually work for a Pizza S on an American military base at the moment. All those cliches about bad but war stories from the older guys or the fraternity style shenanigans the junior enlisted get up to in the barracks are 100% accurate and I see it daily. Probably my favorite though was a delivery to the lower rank officer. 01, 03. Quarters. Door opens to a handful of guys crowded around a table wearing ridiculous hats. Horse mask. Pointy wizard hat. The whole 9 yards. Got to talking to the guy at the door and turns out they were in the middle game night and a couple hours deep into a game of Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder specifically. Nice little nostalgia moment for me as I haven't played anything other than 5th edition since it came out, and being able to geek out with them for a couple minutes snagged me a decent tip. Reddit, it's my time to shine with a story here. I was 16 years old and working my first job at a pizza delivery place. It was a hole in the wall Italian place in the town I grew up that was actually really good food. Anyways, this delivery started off like any other, and all I remember about the order was it was a very generic to feed a lot of people, like 3 large cheese 3 large pepperoni pizza. I drive the pizzas to the house, and recognize it, I have been here before. The only difference tonight was the lights on the outside of the garage were replaced with red light bulbs. So I walk up to the door and ring the doorbell. A dude in a bathrobe answers the door with a woman in her underwear and asks how much it is. Weird but not uncommon. I tell him the price, and he says I need more cash, hang on. He walks back into the house and I'm standing there with the door open. The TV in the living room is within view, and sure enough, there's P playing on the TV. Being a 16-year-old male, I was interested and curious. Behind the TV was a sliding glass door, and I looked into the reflection of it. I will never forget what I saw that day in the reflection. A literal pile of people having sex in the middle of the living room. People standing around naked or in their underwear, watching. I was an awkward but teenager and this was super awkward for me. The dude comes walking back. The woman who was with him was now watching the sex pile and didn't come back to the door. He paid me, gave me a big tip, and was laughing. He said if I wanted to come back after work I was welcome. I probably turned white as a ghost and said no thanks and ran off back to my truck. I went back to the house on multiple deliveries later and the house never had the red light bulbs on it again. Dude always answered fully clothed too. Weird night. TLDR. Went to deliver pizza. Got invited to join an orgy. Not a pizza guy, but a customer. I always yell out close to the door after the doorbell. It's okay. Insert name here. I'll get this one. I do it so that I don't appear alone with cash. And also because I'm embarrassed the amount of food I order for just me. They're more afraid of you than you are of them. Source. Delivered pizza when I was in college. Both 20 years ago and 2 years ago. I was the customer in my situation. And just a little context. I live in an apartment building where the apartments are all on the slope of a mountain, and the only way to get to them are individual sidewalks. Anyway, I order pizza from a place where my sister-in-law's boyfriend worked as a cook, not a driver. Anyway, pizza is ordered and shows up in about 15 minutes, which was super fast. Before I walked over to the door, my wife asked me how did they know which house to go to. I said I don't know, maybe Zach, in-law's boyfriend, told them or something, and suddenly, without warning, my front door opens. Zach walks in with my pizza and said I quit about 4 minutes after you ordered. I brought your free pizza mayo. German paramedic here. We have quite a different system from the paramedic or EMT system. Pizza guy rings the doorbell. No answer. Calls the woman who placed the order. She's all oh my god. I'm so sorry. I'll be right down. Pizza guy hears her rushing down the steps like dum 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 go. No sound at all. After a minute or so calls us. Police. Fire department. The whole circus. Fire department opens the door. Woman with wool socks lying at the bottom of a polished wood spiral staircase with severe head trauma. Was there again years later. She's now partially disabled. Needs professional care several times a day. I'm sorry to say this, I love you guys usually, but leave it to a German to ruin the mood. Jesus Christ, man. That's a freaking horrible story. I'm gonna go outside and hug someone. Pizza place I worked at was next to a prestigious liberal arts college. Our biggest customers on Saturday were members of the lacrosse team who lived in a house literally within walking distance yet for some reason always ordered things to be delivered. But they always tipped so it didn't annoy me that much. One Saturday afternoon I'm making a routine delivery to my LAX brethren and after I knock on the door I hear a very drunk and confused voice yell WHO do you work for? Kind of confused I responded yo it's Phil from Pie Hole. I deliver here every week. The same voice yells back and WHO sent you here still very confused I responded you did. Then I hear a knock on the window that can be seen from the front yard. I look in to see a young girl who looked genuinely worried. She apologized for the man's drunkenness and instructed me to leave the pizza on the patio and that would send me my tip via Venmo. Hide the drugs. Then when I answered the door and it was someone I knew, "Hey, can I tip you in shrooms?" I took that tip. Yes, I did. And then I went back after my shift and got high off and snuggled a papa. Upvote for snuggling papa. I used to deliver flowers if that counts. I had a delivery in a bad part of town but it was a big order. I knock on the door a few times and hear, "Oh crap, he's here, get out," followed by "Never mind. The dude's white." They take the delivery and say never to deliver to this house again. I once delivered to a guy who opened the door holding an AK-47. He said, "Sorry, there were some dudes messing with me earlier. I just didn't even acknowledge it." His friends inside said they would have dropped the food and ran. They were funny. At least you know not to mess with him. I didn't deliver pizza, but sushi hibachi. Anyway, one time when I was dropping off an order I heard a couple inside loudly arguing because she had bought a pack of caffeine-free soda instead of regular because it was on sale. Apparently there was more to it because she did it to spite him for not getting for her pleasure condoms like she had asked him to get. It was the pettiest fight I have ever heard and it was so hard to hold back my laughter when I finally knocked on the door. Not me, but a guy my brother worked with was greeted by a drunk guy pointing a rifle at him. Drunk dude thought it was a wonderful prank. Delivery guy and police didn't agree. Nothing to add for the ARP's question. However, I did see some cute girl's boobs. Definitely a high. However, I also had to visit her old male nudist's house. So, pizza delivery has its high highs and very low lows. Not what I heard, but it's rather interesting. I walked up to a trailer park house and knocked. Dude answers the door wearing a swastika armband and he's bald. I tell him the total and he invites me inside while he gets the money. There's 10 more dudes all bald, all wearing armbands. Sitting in a circle in metal chairs. Guy gives me the money. I go to leave. He grabs my arm and gets in my face and asks, "Do you like NRS?" I don't want to be murdered, so I respond, "Nope, not at all, hate those suckers," and leave as quick as possible. The scary part is every other delivery driver but me that night was black and they might have never been seen again if I didn't take the delivery. I once ordered a pizza whilst I was introducing a fling with GTAV. As she liked driving and free roaming more as going on a rampage, we did a few races. In the middle of one of those races the doorbell rang. I went to answer it. While standing over the money to the delivery girl, my date screamed from the other room, "Oh babe, I've accidentally finished myself already." The delivery girl looked me straight in the eyes and came with "Don't feel bad. She sounds as someone who can do multiple rounds," wink, and she walked off. You missed the perfect threesome moment. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.